Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Morning Musings. Happy Monday morning to you. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. Hope you've had a great weekend. I got to work on my 69 Mach 1, which is, that's what it will hopefully be like one of these years. Boy, what a massive project. It was in a garage fire 11 and a half years ago. And I mean, I'm literally having to build it up from scratch. And it's just such a massive project. Slow because of the amount of money involved and what have you. But anyway, had a good time working on it. Managed to make just a little bit of progress. All right. We are continuing our study of 1 Corinthians chapter 15, the resurrection. We are looking at the resurrection from the perspective of the new creation. Because everyone agrees resurrection brings in the new creation. Well, two of the, foundational Old Covenant prophecies of the new heaven and the new earth, and thus the resurrection, are Isaiah 65, Isaiah 66. We've already spent time on Isaiah 65. We are now developing Isaiah chapter 66. Now, I tell you, I absolutely love the material I'm going to share with you. In Isaiah chapter 66, we have the coming of the Lord to bring in the new heaven and the new earth. Now, once again, we're in territory that virtually everyone agrees, okay, the coming of the Lord brings in the new creation. No one disagrees with that. That's just axiomatic. All right. Now, in Isaiah 66, verse 15, now keep in mind that the context here is God's prediction of the judgment on Jerusalem, the AD 70 destruction of Jerusalem. Even Sam Frost admitted this in a blog post in which, commenting on Isaiah chapter 65 and 66, he said that it predicted the destruction of Jerusalem after BC 586, and he said it predicted one more destruction of Jerusalem, AD 70. That's his teaching. So this is incredibly important to realize that this coming of the Lord takes place in AD 70 to bring in the new heaven and the new earth. You cannot delineate between the coming of the Lord and the destruction of Jerusalem that is being predicted. There is no multiple thousands of years gap between this proposed, destruction of Jerusalem and then a yet future coming of the Lord. No, they are all inextricably, inseparably bound up. In verse 15, the Lord said, "For behold," now, by the way, notice the connective particle, for, okay, this is the time of the blessing of Israel. This is the time of the restoration of Jerusalem. This is the new heaven and the new earth. For, behold, the Lord will come with fire, with his chariots, like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury, his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire and by his sword the Lord will judge all flesh, and the slain of the Lord shall be many. Okay. What I want to share with you right now is what is so critically important to understand. Here is the Lord predicting the coming of the Lord to bring in the new heaven and the new earth. Remember now that Peter, in 2 Peter chapter 3, was anticipating the fulfillment of the Old Covenant prophecies of the new heaven and the new earth, the day of the Lord to bring in the new heaven and new earth. Likewise, John in Revelation was anticipating the coming of the Lord to bring in the new heaven and the new earth. Well, here we have Isaiah, Yahweh through Isaiah, predicting the coming of the Lord to bring in the new heaven and the new earth. What kind of coming of the Lord is in view? Is this an end of time, earth-burning, cosmos-destroying event in which every human being who has ever lived, died, and decomposed will be raised out of the dirt. Is that what this is? Well, let's see. In Isaiah chapter 64, which is the identical context, there's no break in context. Commentators have long recognized this. Notice this. Israel prays to the Lord. Or if you wish, Isaiah prays to the Lord and says, "Oh, that you would rend the heavens, that you would come down." Well, okay, Isaiah 66:15, coming the Lord out of heaven with his chariots. Isaiah 64, "Oh, that you would rend the heavens, that you would come down." Same thing. "That the mountains might shake at your presence. As fire burns brushwood, as fire causes water to boil, to make your name known to your adversaries, that the nations may tremble at your presence." Now, by the way, Isaiah 66:19 and following has greatly similar language, that the nations might know you. All right, now watch this. Here is Isaiah praying for the Lord to come out of heaven and destroy heaven and earth, so that the nations would know him. Now watch this. Watch this. This is awesome. When you did, pardon me, when you did, past tense, when you did awesome things for which we did not look, you came, past tense, down. The mountains shook at your presence. Wait a minute. Isaiah is praying for the Lord to come out of heaven, for the mountains to shake and be removed, so that the nations would know him. But this is what you've got to catch the power of. He wants Yahweh to come as he had come in the past. Well, had Yahweh ever literally, visibly, bodily come out of heaven in the past, pardon me, and destroyed the heavens and destroyed the earth? The answer to that is an unequivocal no. God had acted sovereignly by using one nation to judge another nation. One of the greatest tragedies in theological terms is the idea that the Bible predicts a literal, visible, bodily coming of God out of heaven. That is not what is predicted. Now look, I have produced a series of lessons on defining the day of the Lord. This is a multiple lesson series. It's a it's a series I did a little while back, but for convenience sake, my webmaster, Alan Morton, has kindly put them all into a convenient one-disc form. I'm going to make them available to you for $17.95 post-paid. I go through all of this language here. I go through the language of God coming out of heaven on the clouds in flaming fire, with a shout, with a trumpet, with a hailstorm, etc. And I show definitively that when God came, he used this nation to judge that nation. He never, ever, literally, visibly, bodily came. And Jesus said he was going to come as the Father had come. So what does that mean? That means that when we're talking about the coming of the Lord to bring in the new heaven and new earth, when we're talking about the coming of the Lord for the resurrection, it was not to be a literal, visible coming of Jesus as a 5'5" Jewish man riding on a cloud out of heaven. It is Jesus acting as the Father had acted in judgment, John 5:19 and following. As Jesus had seen the Father act in judgment, but that meant it was not to be a literal, visible, bodily coming of Jesus out of heaven as a 5'5" Jewish man. If you want a copy of this series of lessons on CD, $17.95, total price, postpaid. Contact me through my website, www.donkpreston.com, BibleProphecy.com, and ask how you can obtain a copy of that. Or just simply say, hey, I want a copy of the CD on defining the day of the Lord. And I'll inform you how to pay for that. All right? Well, thank you for joining me for this morning's Morning Musings. I'm going to go into this just a little bit more because this is so critical to understand that the day of the Lord, the day of the Lord's coming for the new heaven and new earth, the day of the Lord's coming for the resurrection was not to be a visible coming of the Lord. Well, if the coming of the Lord wasn't to be a visible coming of the Lord, then the resurrection was not to be a visible event. Pardon me. It's that simple. You don't want to miss it. So stay tuned. We'll see you on the flip side.